Hello and welcome to India Reads. My name is Pradeep and we are reading the story of My Experiments with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi. We are almost reaching to the last stages of the book. We've reached a stage where Gandhi has decided to build an ashram and he selected Ahmedabad and the banks of Sabarmati, and he's decided to call his ashram the Satyagraha Ashram. So let's continue. Section 10. On the anvil. The ashram had been in existence only for a few months when we were put to a test such as I had scarcely expected. I received a letter from Amritlal Thakkar to this effect. A humble and honest, untouchable family is desirous of joining your ashram. Will you accept them? I was perturbed. I had never expected that an untouchable family with an introduction from no less than Thakkar Bapa would be so soon be seeking admission to the ashram. I shared the letter with my companions. They welcomed it. I wrote to Amritlal Thakkar expressing our willingness to accept the family, provided all members were ready to abide by the rules of the ashram. The family consisted of Duda Bhai, his wife Dani Bain, and their daughter Lakshmi, then a mere toddling babe. Dudabhai had been a teacher in Bombay. They had all agreed to abide by the rules and were accepted. But their admission created a flutter amongst the friends who had been helping the ashram. The very difficult, the first difficulty was found with regard to the use of the well, which was partly controlled by the owner of the bungalow. The man in charge of the water lift objected that drops of water from our bucket would pollute him. So he took to swearing at us and molesting Dudabhai. I told everyone to put up with the abuse and continue drawing water at any cost. When he saw that we did not return his abuse, the man became ashamed and ceased to bother us. All monetary help, however, was stopped. The friend who had asked that question about untouchable being able to follow the rules of the ashram had never expected that any such would be forthcoming. With the stopping of monetary help came the rumors of the proposed social boycott. We were prepared for all this. I told my companions that if we were boycotted and denied the usual facilities, we would not leave Ahmedabad. We would rather go and stay in the untouchable quarters and live on whatever we could by manual labor. Matters came to such a pass that Maganlal Gandhi one day gave me this notice: we are out of funds and there's nothing for the next month. I quietly replied, then we shall go to the untouchables quarter. This was not the first time I had been faced with such trial. On all such occasions, God has sent help at the last moment. One morning, shortly after Maganlal had given me the warning of our monetary plight, one of the children came and said that a Seth was waiting outside in a car wanting to see me. I went out to him. I want to give the ashram some help. Will you accept it? Most certainly, said I. And I confess that I am at the present moment at the end of my resources. I shall come tomorrow at this time. Will you be there? He said. Yes, said I, and he left. Next day, exactly at the appointed hour, the car drew up near our quarters and the horn was blown. The children came with the news the Seth did not come in. I went out to see him. He placed in my hands currency notes of the value 13,000 and drove away. I had never expected this help, and what a novel way of rendering it. The gentleman had never before visited the ashram. So far as I can remember, I had met him only once. No visit, no inquiries, simply rendering help and going away. This was a unique experience for me. The help deferred the exodus to the untouchables quarters. We now felt safe for a year. Just as there was a storm outside, so was there a storm in the ashram itself. Though in South Africa, untouchable friends used to come to my place and live and feed with me, my wife and other women did not seem to relish the admission into the ashram of the untouchable friends. My eyes and ears clearly detected their indifference, if not their dislike towards Dani Ben. The monetary difficulty had caused me no anxiety, but this internal storm was more than I could bear. Dani Ben was an ordinary woman. Duda Bhai was a man with slight education but of good understanding. I liked his patience. Sometimes he did flare up, but on the whole I was well impressed with his forbearance. I pleaded with him to swallow minor insults. He not only agreed but prevailed upon his wife to do likewise. The admission of this family proved a valuable lesson to the ashram. In the very beginning, we proclaimed to the world that the ashram would not countenance untouchability. Those who wanted to help the ashram were thus put on their guard, and the work of the ashram in this direction was considerably simplified. The fact that it is mostly the real Orthodox Hindus who have met the daily growing expenses of the ashram is perhaps a clear indication that untouchability is shaken to its foundation. The, these are indeed many proofs, there are indeed many proofs of this, but the fact that good Hindus do not scruple to help an ashram where we go length of dining with the untouchables is no small proof. I'm sorry that I should have to skip quite a few number of things pertaining to this subject. How we tackle the delicate questions arising out of the main question, how we had to overcome some unexpected difficulties, and various other matters which are quite relevant to the description of the experiments with the truth. The chapters that follow will also suffer from the same drawback. I shall have to omit important details because most of the characters in the drama are still alive, and it is not proper without permission to use their names in connection with events which they are concerned. It is hardly practicable to obtain their consent or to get them even every now and then to revise the chapters concerning themselves. Besides such procedures outside the limit of this autobiography, I therefore fear that the rest of the story, valuable as it is, in my opinion, to seekers after truth, will be told with inevitable omissions. Nevertheless, it is my desire and hope, God willing, to bring this narrative down to the days of non-cooperation. Abolition of endangered emigration. We shall, for a moment, take leave of the ashram, which in the very beginning had to weather internal and external storms, and briefly advert to the matter that engaged my attention. Indentured labourers were those who had emigrated from India to labour under an indenture for 5 years or less. Under the Smuts Gandhi settlement of 1914, the £3 tax in respect of the indentured immigrants to Natal had been abolished, but the general emigration from India still needed treatment. In March 1916, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya ji moved a resolution in the Imperial Legislative Council for the abolition of the indentured system. In accepting the motion, Lord Hardinge announced that he had obtained from His Majesty's government the promise of the abolition in due course of the system. I felt, however, that India could not be satisfied with so very vague an assurance, but ought to agitate for immediate abolition. India had tolerated the system through sheer negligence, and I believed the time had come when people could successfully agitate this for redress. I met some of the leaders, wrote in the press, and saw that public opinion was solidly in favor of immediate abolition. Might this be a fit subject for Satyagraha? I have no doubt that it was, but I did not know the modus operandi. In the meantime, the Viceroy made no secret of the meaning of the eventual abolition, which, as he said, was abolition within such reasonable time as will allow of alternate arrangements introduced. So in February 1917, Pandit Malviya ji asked for leave to introduce a bill for the immediate abolition of the system. Lord Chelmsford refused permission. It was time for me to tour the country for an all India agitation. Before I started the agitation, I thought it proper to wait upon the Viceroy. So I had applied for an interview. He immediately granted it. Mr. Maffei, now Sir John Maffei, was his private secretary, and I had come in close contact with him. I had satisfactory talk with Lord Chelmsford, who, without being definite, promised to be helpful. I began my tour from Bombay. Mr. Jahangir Petty undertook to convene the meeting under the auspices of the Imperial Citizenship Association. The executive committee of the association met first for framing of the resolutions to be moved at the meeting. Dr. Stanley Reed, Sergeant now Sir Lalubhai Samaldas, Sergeant Natarajan, and Mr. Pettit were present at the committee meeting. The discussion centered around the fixing of the period within which the government was asked to abolish the system. There were three proposals, that is, for abolition as soon as possible, abolition by 31st July, and immediate abolition. I was for a definite date, as we could decide what to do if the government failed to accede to our request within the time limit. Sergeant Lalubhai was for immediate abolition. He said immediate indicated a shorter period than 31st July. I explained that people would not understand the word immediate. If we wanted to get them to do something, they must have a more definite word. Everyone would interpret immediate in his own way, the government one way, the people another way. There was no question of misunderstanding 31st of July, and if nothing was done by that date, we could proceed further. Dr. Reed saw the force of the argument, and ultimately Sergeant Lalubhai also agreed. We adopted 31st July as the latest date by which the abolition should be announced. A resolution to that effect was passed by at the public meeting, and meetings throughout India resolved accordingly. Mrs. Jaiji Petit put her all her energies into the organization of a ladies' deputation to the Viceroy. Amongst the ladies from Mumbai who formed the deputation, I remember the names of Lady Tata and the late Dilshad Begum. The deputation had a great effect. The Viceroy gave an encouraging reply. I visited Karachi, Calcutta, and other places. There were fine meetings everywhere, and there was unbounded enthusiasm. I had not expected anything like it when the agitation was launched. In those days, I used to travel alone and therefore had wonderful experiences. The CID men were always after me, but I had nothing to conceal. They did not molest me, nor did I cause them any trouble. Fortunately, I had not then received the stamp of Mahatmaship, though the shout of that name was quite common where people knew me. On one occasion, the detectives disturbed me at several stations, asked for my ticket, and took down the number. I, of course, readily replied to all the questions they asked. My fellow passengers had taken me to be a sadhu or fakir. When they saw that I was being molested at every station, they were exasperated and swore at the detectives. Why are you worrying the poor sadhu for nothing? They protested. Don't show these scoundrels your ticket, they said, addressing me. I said to them gently, it is no trouble to show them my ticket. They're doing their duty. The passengers were not satisfied. They evinced more and more sympathy and strongly objected to this sort of ill treatment of innocent men. But the detectives were nothing. The real hardship was the third class traveling. My bitterest experience was from Lahore to Delhi. I was going to Calcutta from Karachi via Lahore, where I had to change trains. It was impossible to find a place in the train. It was full, and those who could get in did so by sheer force, often sneaking through windows if the doors were locked. I had to reach Calcutta on the date fixed for the meeting, and if I missed the train, I would not arrive on time. I had almost given up the hope of getting in and said, "Give me 12 annas and I'll get you a seat." Where a porter, discovering my plight, came to me and said, "Give me 12 annas and I'll get you a seat." "Yes," said I. "You shall have 12 annas if you procure me a seat." The young man went from carriage to carriage entreating passengers, but no one heeded him. As the train was about to start, some passengers said, "There is no room here, but you can shove him if you like. He will have to stand." "Well," asked the young porter. I readily agreed, and they shoved me bodily through the window. Thus I got in, and the porter earned his 12 annas. The night was a trial. The other passengers were sitting somehow. I stood 2 hours holding the chain of the upper bunk. Meanwhile, some of the passengers kept worrying me incessantly. "Why will you not sit down?" they asked. I tried to reason with them, saying that there was no room, but they could not tolerate my standing, though they were lying full length on their upper bunks. They did not tire of worrying me, neither did I tire of gently replying to them. This at last mollified them. Some of them asked me my name and made room for me. Patience was thus rewarded. I was dead tired and my head was reeling. God sent me help when it was most needed. In that way, I somehow reached Delhi and thence Calcutta. The Maharaja of Qasim Bazar, the president of the Calcutta meeting, was my host. Just as in Karachi, there was unbounded enthusiasm. The meeting was attended by several Englishmen. Before the 31st of July, the government announced that the indentured emigration from India had stopped. It was in 1894 that I drafted the first petition protesting against the system, and I had then hoped that this semi-slavery, as Sir W. W. Hunter used to call the system, would someday be brought to an end. There were many who aided in the agitation which started in 1894, but I cannot help saying that the potential Satyagraha hastened the end. For further details to that agitation and those who took part in it, I refer the reader to my Satyagraha in South Africa. The stain of indigo. That's the next chapter. Champaran is the land of King Janaka. As it abounds in mango groves, so used to be full of indigo plantations until the year 1917. The Champaran tenant was bound by law to plant 3 out of every 20 plants of his land with indigo by the landlord, for his landlord. This system was known as the Tin Kathya system, as 3 kathas out of 20, which make 1 acre, had to be planted with indigo. I must confess that I did not know then even the name, much less of the geographical position of Champaran, and I had hardly any notion of indigo plantations. I had seen packets of indigo, but little dreamt that it was grown and manufactured in Champaran at great hardship to thousands of agriculturalists. Rajkumar Shukla was one of the agriculturalists who had been under this arrow, and he was filled with a passion to wash away the stains of indigo for the thousands who were suffering as he had suffered. The man caught hold of me at Lucknow, where I had gone for the Congress of 1916. Vakil Babu will tell you everything about our distress, he said, and urged me to go to Champaran. Vakil Babu is none other than Babu Brajkishore Prasad, who became my esteemed co-worker in Champaran and who is the soul of public work in Bihar. Rajkumar Shukla brought him to my tent. He was dressed in a black alpaca, a khan and trousers. Brij Kishore Babu failed then to make an impression on me. I took it that he must be some vakil exploiting the simple agriculturalist. Having heard from him something of Champaran, I replied, as it was my wont, I can give an opinion without seeing the condition with my own eyes. You will please move the resolution in the Congress, but leave me free for the present. Rajkumar Shukla, of course, wanted some help from the Congress. Babu Brajkishore Prasad moved the resolution expressing sympathy for the people of Champaran, and it was unanimously passed. Rajkumar Shukla was glad, but far from satisfied. He wanted me to personally visit Champaran and witness the miseries of the riots there. I told him that I would include Champaran in the tour which I had contemplated and give it a day or two. One day would be enough, said he, and you will see things with your own eyes. From Lucknow, I went to Kanpur. Rajkumar Shukla followed me there. Champaran is very near here. Give me a day, he insisted. Pray, excuse me this time, but I promise that I will come, said I, further committing myself. I returned to the ashram. The ubiquitous Rajkumar was there too. Pray fix a day now, he said. Well, said I have to be in Calcutta on such and such a date. Come and meet me then and take me from there. I did not know whether I was to go, where I was to go, what I have to do, and what things to see. Before I reached Bhupen Babu's place in Calcutta, Rajkumar Shukla had gone and established himself there. Thus, the ignorant, unsophisticated but resolute agriculturalists captured me. So, in early 1917, we left Calcutta for Champaran, looking like fellow rustics. I did not even know the train. He took me to it and we travelled together, reaching Patna in the morning. This was my first visit to Patna. I had no friend or acquaintance with whom I could think of putting up, but I had an idea that Rajkumar Shukla, simple agriculturalist as he was, must have some influence in Patna. I had come to know from him a little more on the. I had come to know him a little more on the journey, and on reaching Patna, I had no illusions concerned him. He was pretty innocent of everything. The tasks that he had taken to be his friends were the vakils that he had taken to be his friends were nothing of the sort. Poor Rajkumar was more or less a menial to them. Between such agriculturalist clients and their vakils, there was a gulf as wide as the Ganges in flood. Rajkumar Shukla took me to Rajendra Babu's place in Patna. Rajendra Babu had gone to Puri or some other place. I forget which. There were one or two servants in the bungalow who paid us no attention. I had with me something to eat. I wanted dates, which my companion procured for me from the bazaar. There was strict untouchability in Bihar. I might not draw water from the well whilst the servants were using it, lest drops from my bucket might pollute them. The servants, not knowing what caste I belonged to, Rajkumar directed me to the indoor latrine. The servant promptly directed me to the outdoor one. All this was far from surprising or irritating to me, for I was inured to such things. The servants were doing their duty, and they thought Rajendra Babu would wish them to. These entertaining experiences enhanced my regard for Rajkumar Shukla, if they also enabled me to know him better. I saw now that Rajkumar Shukla could not guide me, and that I must take the reins in my own hands. the gentle Bihari. I knew Maulana Mazharul Haq in London when he was studying for the bar, and when I met him at the Bombay Congress in 1915, the year in which he was the president of the Muslim League, he had renewed the acquaintance and extended me an invitation to stay with him whenever I happened to go to Patna. I betrothed myself of this invitation and sent him a note indicating the purpose of my visit. He immediately came in car and pressed me to accept his hospitality. I thanked him and requested him to guide me to my destination by the first available train. The railway guide being useless to an utter stranger like me, he had a talk with Rajkumar Shukla and suggested I should first go to Muzaffarpur. There was a train for that place in the same evening and he sent me off by it. Principal Kriplani was then in Muzaffarpur. I had known him ever since my visit to Hyderabad. Dr. Choitram had told me of his great sacrifice of his simple life and of the ashram, and Dr. Choitram was running out of funds provided by Professor Kriplani. He used to be a professor in the Government College Muzaffarpur and had just resigned from the post when I went there. I'd sent a telegram informing him of my arrival and he met me at the station with a crowd of students. Though the train reached there at midnight, he had no rooms of his own and was staying with Professor Malkani, who therefore virtually became my host. It was an extraordinary thing in those days for a government professor to harbor a man like me. Professor Kriplani spoke to me about the desperate condition of Bihar, particularly of the Tirhut division, and gave me an idea of the difficulty of my task. He had established very close contacts with the Biharis and had already spoken to them about the mission that took me to Bihar. In the morning, a small group of vakils called on me. I remember Ram Navami Prasad among them, and his earnestness especially appealed to me. It is not possible, he said, for you to do the kind of work that you come for. If you stay here, meaning Professor Malkani's quarters, you must come and stay with one of us. Gaya Babu is a well-known vakil here. I have come on his behalf to invite you to stay with him. I confess we are all afraid of the government, but you are true. It is a pity that our leaders are not here today. I have, however, wired to them both. Bapu Braj Kishore Prasad and Babu Rajendra Prasad, I expect them to arrive shortly and they are sure to be able to give you all the information that you want and help you considerably. Pray come over to Gaya Babu's birthplace. This was a request I could not resist, though I had hesitated for fear of embarrassing Gaya Babu, but he put me at ease, so I went over to stay with him. He and his people showered all their affection on me. Braj Kishore Babu now arrived from Darbhanga and Rajendra Babu from Puri. Braj Kishore Babu was not the Braj Kishore Prasad that I had met in Lucknow. He impressed me this time with his humility, simplicity, goodness and extraordinary faith, so characteristic of Biharis, and my heart was joyous over it. The Bihari Vakil's regard for him was an agreeable surprise to me. Soon I felt myself becoming bound to this circle of friends as in lifelong friendship. Braj Kishore Babu acquainted me with the facts of the case. He used to be in the habit of taking up the cases of poor tenants. There were two such cases pending when I went there. When he won any such case, he would console himself that he was doing something good for these poor people, but he did not that he did not charge fees from these simple peasants. Lawyers labor under the belief that if they do not charge fees, they will have no wherewithal to run their households and will not be able to render effective help to the poor people. The figures of the fees they charge and the standard of the barristers' fees in Bengal and Bihar staggered me. We gave rupees 10,000 to so and so for his opinion. I was told nothing less than a four figures in any case. The friends listened to my kind reproach and did not misunderstand me. Having studied these cases, said I have come to the conclusion that you should stop going to law courts. Taking such cases to courts does little good where the lawyer Having studied these cases, said I have come to the conclusion that we should stop going to the law courts. Taking such cases to the courts does little good. When the rights are so crushed and fear-stricken, law courts are useless. The real relief for them is to be free from fear. We cannot sit still until we have driven Teen Kathia out of Bihar. I had thought that I should be able to leave here in 2 days, but I now realize that the work might even take 2 years. I'm prepared to give that time if necessary. I'm now feeling my ground, but I want your help. I found Brij Kishore Babu exceptionally cool-headed. We shall render all the help that we can, but pray tell us what kind of help you will need. And thus we sat talking until midnight. I shall have little use for your legal knowledge, I said to them. I want clerical assistance and help in interpretation. It may be necessary to face imprisonment, but much as I would love you to run that risk, you would go only so far as you feel yourself capable of going. Even turning yourself into clerks and giving up your profession for an indefinite period is not a small thing. I find it difficult to understand the local dialect of Hindi, and I shall not be able to read the papers written in Kaithi or Urdu. I want you to translate them for me. We cannot afford to pay for this work. It should all be done for love and out of a spirit of service. Braj Kishore Babu understood this immediately, and he now cross-examined me and his companions by turns. He tried to ascertain the implications of all that I had said, how long their service would be required, how many of them would be needed, whether they might serve by turns, and so on. And then he asked the Vakils the capacity of their sacrifice. Ultimately, they gave me this assurance: such and such a number of us will do whatever you may ask. Some of us will be with you for so much time as you may require. The idea of accommodating oneself to imprisonment is a novel thing for us. We will try to assimilate it. Face to face with ahimsa. My object was to inquire into the conditions of the Champaran agriculturalists and understand their grievances against the indigo planters. For this purpose, it was necessary that I should meet thousands of the riots. But I deemed it essential before starting on my inquiry to know the planters' side of the case and see the commissioner of the division. I sought and was granted appointments with both. The secretary of the Planters Association told me plainly that I was an outsider and that I had no business to come between the planters and their tenants. But if I had any representation to make, I might submit it in writing. I politely told him that I did not regard myself as an outsider and that I had every right to inquire into the condition of the tenants if they had desired me to do so. The commissioner on whom I called proceeded to bully me and advised me to forthwith to leave Tirhut. I acquainted my co-workers with all this and told them that there was a likelihood of government stopping me from proceeding further, and if I might have to go to jail earlier than and that I might have to go to jail earlier than I had expected, and that if I was to be arrested, it would be best that the arrest should take place in Motihari or, if possible, in Betia. It was advisable, therefore, that I should go to those places as early as possible. Champaran is a district of the Tirhut division, and Motihari is its headquarters. Rajkumar Shukla's place was in the vicinity of Betiha, and the tenants belonged to the Kothis of the neighborhood, were the poorest in the district. Rajkumar Shukla wanted me to see them, and I was equally anxious to do so. So I started with my co-workers for Motihari the same day. Babu Gorakh Prasad harbored us in his home, and which became a caravan serai. It could hardly contain us all. The very same day we heard, about 5 miles from Motihari, a tenant had been ill-treated. It was decided that in company with Babu Dhanidhar Prasad, I should go and see him the next morning, and we accordingly set off for the place on elephant's back. An elephant, by the way, is about as common in Champaran as a bullock cart in Gujarat. We had scarcely gone half when a messenger from the police superintendent overtook us and said that the late latter had sent his compliments. I saw what he meant, having left Dharnidhar Babu to proceed with the original destination. I got into the hired carriage with which the messenger had brought. He then served on me the notice to leave Champaran and drove me to my place. On his asking me to acknowledge the service of the notice, I wrote to the effect that I did not propose to comply with it and leave Champaran till my inquiry was finished. Thereupon I received a summons to take my trial the next day for disobeying the order to leave Champaran. I kept awake the whole night writing letters and giving necessary instructions to Braj Kishore Prasad. The news of this notice and the summons spread like wildfire, and I was told that Motihari that day witnessed unprecedented scenes. Gorakh Babu's house and the courthouse overflowed with men. Fortunately, I had finished all my work during the night and so was able to cope with the crowds. My companions proved the greatest help. They occupied themselves with regulating the crowds, for the latter followed me wherever I went. A sort of friendliness sprang up between the officials, collector, magistrate, police superintendent, and myself. I may have legally resisted the notices served on me. Instead, I accepted them all, and my conduct towards the officials was correct. They thus saw that I did not want to offend them personally, but I wanted to offer civil resistance for their orders. In this way, they were put at ease, and instead of harassing me, they gladly availed themselves of my and my co-workers' cooperation in regulating the crowds. But it was an ocular demonstration to them of the fact that their authority was shaken. The people had for the moment lost all fear of punishment and yielded obedience to the power of love which their new friend had exercised. It should be remembered that no one knew me in Champaran. The peasants were ignorant, Champaran being far up north of the Ganges and right at the foot of the Himalayas in close proximity to Nepal, was cut off from the rest of India. The Congress was practically unknown in these parts. Even those who had heard the name of the Congress shrank from joining it or even mentioning it, and now the Congress and its members had entered its land, though not in the name of Congress, yet in far more real sense. In consultation with my co-workers, I had decided that nothing should be done in the name of Congress. What we wanted was work and not name, substance and not shadow, for the name of the Congress was the bete noir of the government and their controllers, the planters. To them, the Congress was a byword for legal wrangles, evasion of law through legal loopholes, a byword for bomb and anarchical crime, and for diplomacy and hypocrisy. We had to disillusion them both. Therefore, we had decided not to mention the name of the Congress and not to acquaint the peasant with the organization called the Congress. It was enough, we thought, if they understood and followed the spirit of the Congress instead of its letter. No emissaries had been sent there openly or secretly on behalf of the Congress to prepare the ground for our arrival. Rajkumar Shukla was incapable of reaching the thousands of peasants. No political work had been done amongst them. The world outside Champaran was not known to them, and yet they received me as though we had been age-long friends. It is no exaggeration, but the literal truth to say that in this meeting with the peasants, I was face to face with God, ahimsa, and truth. When I come to examine the title to this realization, I found nothing but love for the people, and this in turn is nothing but an expression of my unshakable faith in ahimsa. That day in Champaran was an unforgettable event in my life and a red letter day for peasants and for me. According to law, I was to be on my trial, but truly speaking, government was to be on its trial. The commissioner only succeeded in trapping the government in the net which he had spread for me. Okay, with this we are going to end today's reading. This has been an interesting chapter because it moves from Shanti Niketan to Bihar. Let me just go back to where we were. Yeah, so most of the reading today has been about Gandhi's experiences in Champaran, and before that he talks a little bit about the abolition of the indentured labor and setting up of the ashram. Now let's start with the setting up of the ashram. Yeah, while Gandhi was discussing about the setting up the ashram, there was one question which one of his well-wishers had asked, saying that what if untouchables were to come to a ashram, and he had said that we would willingly accept them. Now when that situation came, he realized that it was not as easy as he had thought, because he gladly accepted the untouchables family, after of course checking on what kind of people they were, and they willing to abide by the rules of the ashram. When he did so, a lot of his funding came down. A lot of people who did not like the idea of sharing the premises, rather they were sharing a singular water source which was a well in their premises, started creating problems. Some of them insulted, some of them got physical. Gandhi had told his people that they would not retaliate, and this kind of ashamed the guy who was getting physical, and he stopped doing so. Now, in terms of funds, Gandhi completely lost out on his funds, and he has no clue and what the future would be. When he discussed with his team on this, they said that uh, he had Maganlal Gandhi told him that he had funds only to run for another 1 month. Gandhi had decided that if he reaches a stage where the funds are completely over, they would move to the untouchables quarters rather than removing the untouchables from their ashram. Now, this is what he had in terms of a plan, but Gandhi always felt that he had so Gandhi always felt that he had the hand of God every time he would go into trouble, knowing that he was doing the right thing. In this case, he got a princely sum of about 13,000 rupees from an unknown, from a person who was not his. He was a well-wisher, but was not somebody that he knew very well, and he accepted this money, and this kind of helped him continue on for another year, and so things were cool in terms of Satyagraha Ashram in Ahmedabad, in which was Gandhi and his followers had decided that they would not leave Ahmedabad, irrespective of however difficult the situation gets. Now, in terms of an opportunity, he got an opportunity to travel to Champaran. There was a case there, and this was a case of the indigo planters. Of Champaran. This was a very sensitive case, and Gandhi kind of took it up uh, in his Gandhian way, which is to say that because it reached out to the poorest of the poor, he would not take any money for it. He would only need the services of the people, or of the guy who had called him, Rajkumar Shukla. He said that you need to do the clerical job for it, and there was very little chance of him winning. The case was all about the farmers being forced to plant indigo along with the other plantations, and the money was taken over by the people who forced them to do so. So this is where Gandhi is currently. When I kind of stop the chapter, we will kind of look into it a little bit more detail. Gandhi felt that he would get arrested, and he had told the people, the team of Akils that who were there to support him, that there might be a chance that you guys will get arrested, so try and keep it clean. Gandhi, when he realized that there is a chance of him getting arrested, he goes to Motihari, which is the headquarters of, or rather the capital area of Champaran, and or rather headquarters of Champaran, and they start moving into another area on elephant back when he gets the call that the police is looking for him. So he gets down and he kind of surrenders himself, and the other team members continue on their journey, and that's where we left as far as the reading was concerned. I'll try and fix our issues. We've been facing a lot of issues with the camera and the storage, so we will try and fix this, and hopefully the next reading should go on very smoothly. I'll see you the next time. Take care. Bye bye.